Welcome back, everybody, to the South Endzone. I am Chad. You see Tyler there, and it's survive in advance era right now. That's all I can say. I got a little hate from a friend, Tanai Ricks. Shout out to Tanai on the timeline, telling me that we were frauds and that they shouldn't have been on the field with us. And I was like, look, man, you don't understand. It's the SEC. That Arkansas LSU rivalry is like a rock fight in the street. Like, it is just not pretty. There have been some crazy ones where like we had no business losing and we lost or almost lost. But then you go back and like what's crazy about it is you go back and look. So like the 2007 national championship team under Les Miles lost in triple overtime to Arkansas and still went to the national championship after they had a triple overtime loss to Kentucky earlier in that year. But that Kentucky team had Randall Cobb and Wesley Woodyard and like all these guys where I was like, oh, okay. So this like, there's some like NFL studs on that roster. Then you go to that Arkansas team, the backfield that we lost to in that game, it was like 50-48 or something like that in triple overtime. Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, and Peyton Hillis all in the same backfield with like Casey Dick at quarterback or something like that. But it was three like starting NFL running backs.
Yeah, Heisman runner-up, right?
Playing in the same. Yeah. So anyway, it was that kind of weekend. Let's get into it. Tyler, did you enjoy yourself partying with the fam and everything, watching the Georgia game, or did you have to do something else?
So it was a night in with the lady. We watched the game. Well, it was it was Georgia UAB in the time slot up against Iowa, Penn State, up against Ohio State, Notre Dame, up against even your guys' game. So I was bouncing around. But overall, my thoughts on that game is that Carson Beck. Well, let me backtrack even before the game started. You and I talk all the time about the SEC environment, right? There was a stadium like this, night game in Athens, UAB. Which, a program that's been through a lot, as we all know. Trent Dilfer.
From not having a program to getting it back and everything.
To having to beg and plead the president of the university, that. Trent Dilfer, NFL Super Bowl champ. Trent Dilfer is their head coach. And he said this atmosphere, 7:30 in Athens, is better than, he's like, the Super Bowl crap is like corporate show for whatever. He's like, this right here is different. You know what I mean? So that's coming from a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
And y'all weren't even playing Auburn or Tennessee or Florida or anything like that.
So for the opposing team's head coach to really sit as as a man who's done a lot as a player, to sit and realize the moment. I mean, hey, what more can you say?
Yeah, no doubt. So let's get into it a little bit because this was the deepest slate we've had this year. Thank God we finally had a good week of games. But we're just going to touch on this one a little bit. You guys walk away easy with a 4-touchdown win, but it was a little tighter than that early on. They tied you guys up 7-7. Then they put together a nice little drive right before the end of the half. Like, what was it, like 90 yards or something like that in like a minute?
As far as the play of the game, I was happy with Carson Beck. He looked more comfortable in the pocket. Yeah, he looked way more comfortable in the pocket than the last three games. We also, I don't know if you watched any of it, but that first drive, we passed the ball like 90% of that drive, and we got down the field in a minute. You know what I mean?
That's what you got to do in that kind of situation is take advantage of it to like get that part of your game.
Definitely. Going. And we actually it really shows the amount, like some teams have one guy that they go to, or two guys. We actually have like an offensive arsenal across our receivers, across our tight ends. Brock Bowers, Oscar Delpa, tight end. You have Marcus Jack-Saint, Rosemary Jack-Saint. You have Ra Thomas, Arian Smith, Dominic Lovett. These are all of our receivers that we're going to. And Dejon Edwards at running back. I've always been running back by committee, but it looks like Dejon, as a young guy, is getting the ball right now with guys backing him up. The play calling looked smoother. It looked like we were really trying to not just, we're going to run the ball here, run the ball there. Like, we were trying to take the top off early. The defense got a little stagnant in the second quarter. We did pick them off the second quarter, but I want to give you a stat real quick before we move on. Kirby Smart is, never happy, never satisfied. So We in the third quarter of games, we are have outscored teams 52-0.
Oh wow.
Um,
So you're like the 2016, 2017 era Golden State Warriors of
that's
of college
exactly what they said
football.
on the broadcast. That's exactly what they said on the broadcast.
Because that was it was the 2017 team that won that beat the Rockets to go to the finals, and they were just like, if you weren't up by like 15, 20 going into the third quarter, you were get ready to be down by 20 going into the fourth.
We were up, but it was only like 21-14 or 21-7 at that point.
And then you were up 28-14 at halftime.
And then we immediately were up 42-14.
Yeah.
So like we were averaging 14 points alone in the third quarter. 52, I mean, you don't want to be the team that has to come out guns, be forced to come out guns blazing. Now we were up, but like that kind of style is not going to work every time.
Yeah.
Every game. You know what I mean?
But that speaks to Kirby Smart's halftime adjustments. Like that's been like a calling card of his is that whatever's going on in the first half, he's going to fix it in the second half. And it's not a guarantee for victory, but the last 3 years, it's pretty close. Really you could go back to even the 2018 season. 2020 was kind of weird. But 2018, that team that went to the national championship and was like a play or two away from getting it done, similar situation. I think the only difference was the adjustment that he had to make was like, hey, you got to scheme against this quarterback now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just yanked Jalen Hurts because you guys would have destroyed him if Jalen Hurts had stayed in the game.
And then to cap it all off, we had the backup sandwich to give up points late. I think it was Gunnar Stockton who he threw a pick on the sideline. But UAB in comparison to their league is a very good team. And they have the Baylor transfer quarterback who we played the Sugar Bowl in 2020. So and Trent Dilfer is a smart guy. Good, seems like a good coach, and I think he's going to be a great fit for that program going forward in his first year. But all in all, I was way happier about this than the Ball State game and the UT Martin game for the reasons I said. Beck was more comfortable in the pocket. We're using all of the available weapons that we have, and we have a lot. And that I think we're starting games better than we have in the first three.
Yeah, so I'm going to skip ahead because we got some other games that we're going to talk about as we go through this. But I'm going to skip ahead to our game because I want to get into that a little bit. So I feel similarly. I feel like the Mississippi State game last week, LSU. Mississippi State was just outmatched. Like they're learning a new offense. It's a vastly different style of play, more run heavy and more balanced and more conservative than the air raid that Mike Leach had. And so I think it made things a little easier on LSU's defense to play as well as they did. Now you still got to go out there and make the plays, and they were all over the place getting after it. I'll say this about Arkansas though. Like it looks on paper like, oh, LSU should win. The spread was 17.5 or whatever. And it looks like
a spread in a game like this.
Bro, KJ Jefferson is a monster, dude.
Yeah.
That dude is like, he's built like,
like
he kind of reminds me of like Byron Leftwich, but like with mobility. Like,
he is big.
Huge.
I realized that dude. In your game. He's a big boy.
He's a big dude. And so, and the other thing is too, LSU's got to clean up a couple of things in the passing game. We could have been up by 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first half, but just like in the Florida State game, a couple of underthrown balls to wide open receivers deep downfield by Jaden Daniels made it to where instead of LSU having touchdowns on those plays, instead the pass is broken up. Now, on 2 of them, there was obvious pass interference. DB is not even looking for the ball, just runs directly into the receiver. And on one of them, ripped his hands down as he's going up to catch it. So naturally, you can't catch the ball if your hands are being pulled down.
Yeah.
So, but not to complain about that, because the reality is if Jaden Daniels throws the ball where it needs to be thrown, there's no opportunity for pass interference. So in a way, I kind of looked at it like the referees were saying, like, no, man, it's on you. You can't underthrow that ball like that. It's still supposed to be pass interference, but they've gotten, as you've seen, they've gotten a lot more lenient with that stuff. Where like things that you used to be able to get away with in the NFL and in college football, they're just letting guys maul each other unless it's like really flagrant. So and they'd call holding a lot more before the pass than they do PI.
I swear it's like I feel like so many good plays. It's like we're holding, a play gets outside and all of a sudden everybody's holding.
Yeah, so we're going to see how Arkansas looks because they've got A&M coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've got A&M, then Ole Miss, then let me pull it up here. It's A&M, Ole Miss, and then Alabama back to back to back. So we're going to see real quick. If Arkansas goes 2-1 in that stretch, all of a sudden it's like, oh damn, Arkansas is legit.
Mm-hmm.
Now they go 0-3, then heap the criticism on LSU for not getting it done and boat racing it better. But that's a rivalry that goes back ever since Arkansas joined the league. It's become it never was, but it has become a rivalry game since Arkansas joined the league back in the 90s. And now there's a trophy for it. They have this big boot that's like Arkansas, cool, Louisiana, the two states, I
think that's really cool.
So you've got that, and KJ Jefferson is he's that dude. And then we had a couple of plays where like there was some holding that wasn't called, and so the pocket was broken down, and he broke free from it and evaded the rush despite the holding. There was one where we actually got to him, got an incompletion on, I think it was 4th and long, or maybe it was 3rd and long. But anyway, we get off the field, and Harold Perkins hits KJ Jefferson as he's releasing the ball, and they call it a late hit. And I'm like, he's in the air throwing the ball, and Harold Perkins is launching as he's letting the ball go.
Yeah,
like you can't stop yourself in midair.
Yeah,
you get it too. But anyway, it is what it is. We got the W. I had a little bit of a question as to why Brian Kelly handled the clock at the end the way that he did. I felt like LSU should have just been running the ball, and then the last play, instead of getting up to the line of scrimmage and then running a play on 3rd down where you have you can run it or you can throw it or whatever, and you still have that timeout left. He let the clock run all the way down, then called the timeout with 12 seconds left, and then we run a pass play, or maybe it was 6 seconds left. Anyway, we run a pass play, and it's just like, wait a second, what are we doing? Where you had the option to run the ball, you could run your whole playbook from the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
If you don't let the clock run all the way down, and then you would still have that timeout in your back pocket. As it was, they let it run all the way down. Then he calls the timeout so that they only get the one playoff, and then we kick the field goal. We win on the field goal, but it's to me it was playing with fire a little bit. But all in all, the back end of the defense is going to have to tighten up. I think a lot of that gets cleaned up and you can kind of put lipstick on that pig, because I don't know that we have the secondary that we need to be able to compete on the championship level that we want to, without doing a better job of getting after the quarterback. And that means further unleashing Harold Perkins to do his thing. He got one sack at the end of the first half on KJ Jefferson. He had that hit, which I think disrupted and made the pass go incomplete, but a terrible penalty negated it. But more of that. We need more pass rush. We need more pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know that Jalen Milroe is on that level of KJ Jefferson.
No.
You've got a guy who's like a potential Heisman candidate versus a guy who they're not sure if he's even the guy for that quarterbacking position, although I think he played well this week.
I agree.
And so let's get into that. So we'll stick with the SEC for a minute here. Ole Miss looked like they were going to hang around and make this a game, and then they just let Alabama just kick them in the nuts repeatedly. They kicked themselves in the nuts a few times with some turnovers and things. What did you think when you saw that game?
Did the game feel like a really ugly game for this kind of matchup to you? It just didn't.
I expected a lot more explosiveness, a lot more plays to be made.
It was a lot of punts, a lot of 3 and outs, and a lot of just shooting themselves. Both teams shooting themselves in the foot with penalties. It was what 10-7 at half, something like that. It was like 7-7.
No, 7-6.
7-6, even worse.
7-6.
And it was super low.
And Ole Miss scored on their opening possession. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, immediately. And I was like, oh shit, like this is it. Like this is like they scored right away. I was like, let's go, boys. Like we're here.
Yeah. And then Jalen Milroe was playing like crap the first half.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, y'all got this.
Yeah,
oh, no,
Jalen Milroe.
It's Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, Jalen Milroe with the hints of Jalen Hurts with the way he runs when he gets outside and he's just putting his shoulder down. It did not have the typical markings of an Ole Miss Alabama matchup with the deep shots downfield with the crazy. And I know that like not every game can be that, but it just was kind of like an ugly 24-10 game where it's like oh, actually now Alabama's up. Like, Alabama kind of figured it out late. Not figured it out, but like just stop screwing around, I guess you could say. It was just a matter of like who was going to stop making penalties, who was going to actually not go 3 and out and make something happen. And Alabama decided to take the opportunity and do so. It just was not it was an ugly game in my opinion.
Right. And then Ole Miss also did some things where there were some questionable decisions Kiffin made where they could have sort of like what we saw last night in the Monday night game with the Raiders, where they basically took a field goal off the board to run a few plays, burn a minute off the clock, and then kick a field goal again anyway.
Yeah, the clock management.
It was like, man, y'all could have just kept that field goal, kicked off, had some more time to come back, and then you might have actually won the game at the end instead of being rushed and having to do goofy stuff. So, and they ended up, they ended up playing keep away with him. Tomlin did, but anyway, so Kiffin just, it's Lane Kiffin. We talked about it last week. He opened his mouth, and sometimes he backs it up, but most of the time he doesn't. Most of the time, it's stupid Lane Kiffin, where he writes checks with his mouth that his team and his rear end cannot cash, nor his coaching ability. So there were some other SEC matchups. We'll get into them as we go through the rest of this, but I think all in all, we saw Texas A&M acquitted themselves a little better. They looked better than they have at least in their other big matchup with Miami earlier this week. But let's get into some of these other top 25 matchups because there were some big ones. Florida State Clemson was the one. Clemson, I think, just like what we were just talking about, really, really shot themselves in the foot, had a chance to win it, and God bless that kicker that they pulled out of grad school at the last minute. But man, you can't miss that one.
No, you can't. And it's like if you are being put in the, like we say, we don't blame kickers here. At least I personally don't blame kickers. But like that's it's not like you're asking to make it from the 60 or like a 52-yard. It's right in front, nice and easy. Not saying that I could have made it, but somebody who is a kicker supposedly should be able to have that. I mean, like you said, it's the second attempt of his career. I get that, but if that's kind of what you sign up to do, or Dabo signed him up to do, I guess. Like I don't know who volunteered. You have to do it.
You have to do it. Otherwise, we're going to murder your family. I don't know what they told him, but it was like
brought him in the stadium. It's like you see that. Kid. Yeah,
poor guy. Right. But he made the first one.
He did.
Early in the game, and got that. But it's asking a lot. Even so, the thing is, the fact that he made that one, and it had been like 3 hours since he made it. Then he comes into that situation. It's like, man, his butterflies are going crazy.
Oh yeah, for anybody.
His adrenaline is just like through the roof, and it happened. You saw what happened. Ohio State, Notre Dame. Let's get into that one because that was crazy. Did you see that Notre Dame actually played the last two games, the last two plays of that game with 10 men on the field on defense?
Jeremiah sent me that. They literally played. Literally, the goal line punch in for the win was with 10 men on the field.
What are you doing?
And then
Freeman, what are you doing?
Ryan Day just,
going off on Lou Holtz.
Lou Holtz comes on the Pat McAfee show, and it says, and like somebody tweeted, like Lou Holtz would say Notre Dame could beat the 49ers if he felt like it. Like, come on, like.
Yeah.
Usually
what Lou Holtz did was he said stuff like when he was coaching.
Yeah.
He said stuff like they would be playing like I don't know, Army or Holy Cross or something like that,
Navy.
and he'd be like, "Yeah, I don't know. Like, they're a really good team. They're probably one of the best teams in the country at whatever
Yeah.
something." And it was like, "Bro, they're like 3-9. What are you talking about? They weren't that bad because they didn't play that many games, but yeah, they're like 1-6 before they play
Yeah.
Notre Dame, and he's talking about them like they're this close to being in the national championship conversation. Every team that they played,
Because it
so
makes
that
it look better when you beat them.
right. Well, that, and it's also like a way to get your team to not
Mm-hmm.
overlook somebody. But yeah, that. So it's funny that you bring up that because we're going to talk about the Iowa State Penn State whiteout blowout, but I want to get into, because you just talked about what Ryan Day did.
Mm-hmm.
So Lou Holtz critiques that team, calls them out, and Ryan Day goes off and has his
Mm-hmm.
thing and everything. Well, for some reason, like the Colorado Oregon game seems very similar, and it's just interesting how you have um you have Lanning and his little tirade after
Mm-hmm.
or before the game, where he's telling his kids, like, this is over now. The
Yeah.
Cinderella story stops now, and everybody's trolling him for that, saying it's
Like,
low key
why though? Like,
racist or whatever.
that's
And then on the other
crazy.
side, yeah, and then on the other side is you got the Dion stuff, and it's like, look, if you're coaching, I've been a coach. Like, you say whatever you need to say
Yeah.
to get
Right.
your kids ready and motivated and focused to win.
Yeah.
I like, so say what you want to say. I think there's a lot of people who are spending way too much time focusing on how Dion is doing his job, how Ryan Day is doing his job, or how this guy, at Oregon, Lanning, is doing his job, and what they're saying to motivate the kid. He didn't say anything like, I mean, he's got a locker room that's like half like Samoans and black kids or more.
Yeah.
So like, why is he going to go in there and be
Yeah.
saying it in a way that is anything other than just, it's us against them.
Yeah.
We're better than them, and we're going to
Yeah.
go beat them because all anybody's talking about is them, and we're going to show them why they should be talking about us instead.
Yeah.
Like,
That's exactly what he said. There's not
why
more.
wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do that if you're that coach? Like, I
Yeah,
don't
it's like,
understand.
hey, everybody loves them. The media loves them. How about they make them love us? You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
he.
right.
Like, Georgia defensive coordinator, by the way. Yeah, because he got hired away from us.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't. Yeah, I was gonna say he said nothing that any other coach would not have said,
Mm-hmm.
like, to his team to get him fired up. And I just think that, like, that was, yeah, to accuse him of anything other than that is crazy.
Yeah, it was wild.
Ryan Day,
And
I
like,
think, yeah.
and Lou Holtz saying that that Ohio State wasn't tough or whatever, like, that's, I don't know, like,
His opinion. That's an opinion.
just
He can have that.
just go. Like, I say
Yeah.
stuff like that all the time. I look
Yeah.
at what I see, and I describe it how I see it. Like, what do you want me to
Lou
do?
Holtz is
I'm
happily
not here to
retired, man.
coddle you, like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh shoot. But yeah, so that game, Colorado, Oregon, it was, I said it was Dion hater bait. I was right. And Oregon just ate all the bait off of all the hooks
Yep.
and
And
took
then
it and
some.
ran, and didn't even get a scratch on their lip while they were doing it. They just said, "Thank you very much for feeding the fish. We are on our way." It's like, we are the hell out of here. So Iowa and Penn State, a blowout like we suspected.
Mhm.
I looked everywhere I could to find a way to bet Iowa under points, but I couldn't
Yeah.
find it, and I wasn't going to mess around with the spread because I just didn't know if Penn State was going to be able to put up enough points for us.
Yeah.
I just knew that Iowa wasn't going to score in this game,
Yeah.
and that's not that they weren't going to score, just that it was going to be like maybe a touchdown or two at the most. And sure enough, that's what happened. Washington, Cal. This is kind of crazy. Like, everybody's talking about Washington and Michael Penix Jr. as though they are like a low-key sleeper national championship contender. And I'm sorry, but like, did you see that game?
No, I didn't get a chance
Okay,
to.
so you see the final score right there,
Yeah.
59-32.
Crazy.
Washington just blew them out. Michael Penix took his first snap of the game up 14-6.
Oh, defense.
Kickoff to Cal, pick six.
Oh.
Kickoff to Cal, punt return for a touchdown. Then Cal drove the length of the field and scored. So at that point, it was Cal 6, Washington's defense and special teams 14.
That's crazy.
So now that's not to take away from, that stuff happened, right? So like give them credit for making those plays. But when you look at that final score and you're like, okay, they won by 27, but they kind of got spotted 2 touchdowns right out of the gate, and Cal isn't good.
No.
And you're playing at home in a conference game.
At a night game.
I don't know. Like it is what it is. We'll see when they get to play some tougher competition. I'll tell you this much. Cal ain't no Arkansas. That's for sure. So the other one that was interesting, Cam Rising did not play, but Utah still beat UCLA.
14.
They took a pick 6 to start the game, and they got it done ultimately. But it was not the way that we expected it to go.
No.
Utah becomes really dangerous if and when Cam Rising is ready to fully resume activity after that ACL injury in the bowl game last year, which it's still a miracle that he's even like available to possibly play right now.
Yeah, right.
But that one was fun to watch. And Washington State, Oregon State, Washington laid the points took the points. They were a home fate. I'm screwing it all up. They were home dogs.
Yeah.
And somehow found a way to get it done against Oregon State in another, well, as they call it, a Pac-2 matchup.
Pac-2.
They're the only two teams still left. They're the only 2 teams that haven't already committed to another school, another conference. Like I'm taking my talents to the Big 12. And then there's not really much else like as far as the top 25 schedule is concerned. So we can pull up the SEC schedule if you want and look at that. But what do you think after a few weeks now and assessing the landscape? I don't know how you feel about it. So let me hear how you feel, and then I'll tell you my thoughts on where the SEC is and where our 2 teams are relative to that.
I think that the SEC is still more wide open than it has been, especially the West, which the West is always going to be wide open. The East, I think, is still like obviously we are still the number 1 team. We are still, but like we still have to play. Like this is like the meat of our schedule is coming up this weekend with Auburn. You know what I mean? You still have a lot of games that need to happen to shake themselves out a little bit. I don't want to say it's like us and then people are going to figure out who's second place because that's way too cocky for how our team has been so far. Struggling with South Carolina a little bit to start. As far as the West, I think it's getting very interesting. I think that obviously you guys are going to be there. You have to not fix, but kind of take care of the things that you had just spoken about and the about when you guys play Arkansas. I mean, I don't know if Ole Miss just played themselves out of the contention.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be tough for them. Yeah. They've got a lot still left on the plate. They've got a lot of ground to make up, and they've got a tough schedule to do it against.
With Alabama losing early, but yet still it sounds like it's gonna be y'all and them again, like coming down the stretch. Even though we don't want that to be the case, we would love it to not just be y'all and Alabama. Not saying y'all, but like Alabama. Maybe add another team in there, like A&M is struggling right now. I mean, they beat Auburn, and it seemed like they played pretty well.
Yeah.
But like they're still trying to figure things out. Like it's just like
Hugh Freeze.
Nobody has set themselves way above. Like typically at this point in the season, at least one team has said we are definitely better than everybody else. Which I don't think has happened yet.
Right, and I think like Mississippi State is going to get somebody. Arkansas is going to get somebody.
Definitely Arkansas.
I think Ole Miss could still. Auburn's gonna sneak up and grab somebody.
I know we play them this weekend.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think you guys should be okay, but like Hugh Freeze, it's gonna take a minute to get that thing going, and look at Ole Miss's schedule the rest of the way. So they've got Arkansas this weekend at home, then they go to Auburn, Then they've got Vandy. They should win that one. But then they host Texas A&M, go to you guys, and then finish up the season with the what do they call that thing? The Egg Bowl or whatever.
The Egg Bowl, yeah, with
Where they got but that's in Starkville this year.
Oh,
so
okay.
So it's you know what I'm saying? Like Ole Miss could have 4 losses by the time the season's over with, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw how Tulane kind of manhandled them a little bit. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at all if they end up, I don't know, 3-4 losses, because it seems like where they lack is similar to what we talked about with Colorado and Oregon. They just don't have the guys up front.
Yeah,
that they had. You know, there's no Laramie Tunsil to get it going for them. But so let's see. Do I have this pulled up right?
Well, what are your overall thoughts on like the East and West, like how the landscape is shaking out?
Yeah, I mean, I feel similarly, and we see this. Here's that A&M game with Auburn. So I still think Auburn is. They're going to sneak up and grab somebody. Texas A&M, the jury's still kind of out on them. That the way they played against Miami, if Connor Wegman can actually be the guy, he had some struggles early in this game against Auburn, and they had some 3-and-outs and some ugly possessions, and they kind of pulled away late. But that game was 6-3 at halftime.
Yeah, it was. I was like, I like.
It looked like it was going to be a decent game, and then they just pulled away as the game wore on. But the one I wanted to really talk about, but yeah, I'm with you. Just real quick to put a bow on that, I definitely think the West is wide open, and I think the East is you guys' division to lose. The one team that we don't really know about yet is Missouri. Like I don't know what to think about them, because that win against K-State may have been a little window into like they're better than we think they are.
Yeah.
But I need to see more. I need to see them. They beat Memphis. It was a close game this weekend. But Memphis isn't that good. But then, I didn't think they were that good either. So who knows? So let's kind of refocus back to, we talked about this at the end of the show last week. This game right here was a big one. And, we talked about the Mississippi State defense. I mean, the Mississippi State offense.
Yeah.
And how LSU's defense just shut them down. And how bad Will Rogers looked and everything. Will Rogers threw for 487 yards in this game against South Carolina. Where was Carson Beck throwing for 487 yards last week?
He was checking down every time he dropped back. That's what he was doing. I'll tell you what he was doing.
and look, shout out to South Carolina. They got it done. They found a way. But like this game was crazy. And this is what we talked about. Like if South Carolina, if it's a close game, then we're still kind of up in the air on like, because we blew out Mississippi State and you guys had your hands full with South Carolina. The transitive property of college football does kind of come into play there. But we also got to see like what that offense is actually capable of. Like I was just sitting here thinking, oh yeah, they just don't have it. It's going to be some growing pains. Well, apparently it took 1 week.
Yeah.
And then they took the governor off, and they're going wild.
I mean, we all knew Will Rogers was like a talented quarterback. It just was, the turnover from one coach to another, obviously, and it just the growing pains of that. But we all knew Will Rogers was talented. It's just a matter of like I think Mississippi State's offense like getting the wheels going and things moving along. But yeah, close game. And so the transitive property of sports means what?
Yeah, it means that we should be better than you guys because we blew out Mississippi State and South Carolina barely beat Mississippi State and you guys barely beat South Carolina. It's a very tenuous, it's a stretch of the transitive property. Like it would be better if like South Carolina had beaten y'all and then Mississippi State beat South Carolina and we beat Mississippi State.
And then the circle goes around.
Then it would be then it would be like a perfect transitive property execution, but not so much here. But it is just an interesting little data point for us to look at. So that's kind of a wrap for the recap as far as I see it. Unless there was another game that you wanted to dig into, I pretty much touched on everything that I wanted to touch on those.
Other than that, UNC did exactly what I said they were going to do and beat the brakes off Pittsburgh, and App State fell short to Wyoming on the road.
Yeah.
But I think it was I think the spread was 2.5, and I think they lost by 2 or 3. It was a close game on the road, but that's all in all. I think we put a nice bow on that, and that
right.
All in all.
Yeah. So now looking ahead, just a little quick preview. We'll come back and do a more lengthy preview before the games on Saturday. But you guys have Auburn up next.
We do,
and we've got Ole Miss. We got to go to Oxford.
We got to go to Jordan Hare.
It's So it's a couple of road games for our guys. And what do you see? What do you see from you guys? And how do you see it going? As your schedule starts to shape up?
I will say it, and obviously we know. I mean, and things get dicey with us whenever we go to Auburn for some reason. It just always has been. Whether it's Todd Gurley tearing his ACL, whether it's the prayer of Jordan Hare, whether it's Cam Newton, it just is always interesting whenever we have to travel to Auburn. It definitely is I think every state in the SEC is a crazy house to play in, but Jordan Hare is definitely no different. I know that it looks like they played Robbie Ashford was played quarterback for Auburn. Yeah, didn't look too. I think that Auburn is better than the score that it ended up being against A&M.
Yeah,
but
it was another one where it just kind of got away from him.
Yeah,
no, it was. So did Ashford get hurt?
No, I thought Ashford was playing. I thought it was the other way around. Like they had another quarterback, and then Ashford was.
Oh, he came in late. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And the little bits of that game that I saw.
Yeah, Peyton Thorne started the game,
and then
he was not good.
Yeah. So overall,
he got 3 points on the board, but that was it.
Yeah, I think overall, it comes down to getting off to that hot start. Not don't save gas in the tank too long. That we make sure that we use every single weapon that we have available, like that we did against UAB. Like we spread the ball around real nice. Carson Beck looked calm, composed. You ask why Will Rogers passed for 400 yards against South Carolina and Carson Beck didn't. Carson Beck was check down Charlie, as one of my friends said in that game. Just looked scared and immediately, got rid of it short. When we do have guys that can get vertical, Rob Bowers, Marcus Rosemy, all of them can get vertical. And I just think that, barring mistakes and not leaving it to if we have to leave it to the third quarter, turn it on, great. But I'd rather have a lead if that's the case. I don't want to be down and then have to figure it out again, like we did against South Carolina. But I think it's, whenever we go to Jordan Hare, you kind of never know what's going to happen. So I'm ready for it. What about y'all?
Yeah, it's Ole Miss in Oxford, and they're coming off of an embarrassing finish to that game against Alabama, where I think they thought they were really going to have a chance. And
it's Alabama. Figured to be the chance Lane Kiffin had to beat Nick Saban.
That's
time, right? Good start too. Jackson Dart finds
hang on
a little seam. And
all right, let me stop sharing. Let's play in the audio from the screen there.
Copyright.
Yeah,
ESPN, leave us alone.
Fair use. Sorry, we didn't mean to. That was actually CBS.
That's our damn producer needs to get.
Yeah, it was when I pulled up the score, the box score or the recap or whatever for the Alabama Ole Miss game, it just started playing
the highlights.
Anyway, just started playing the thing. So I'm trying to see. So Alabama has Mississippi State next, and I'm trying to see if. So I thought Jackson Dart went down.
He
at some point
left. I figure he left a little bit more than. I know that he's supposed to be pretty good, but I thought that he could have had a better game overall.
He threw that interception in the red zone, and it was just ugly. The kind of things that you can't do if you're even with Alabama playing as poorly as they've been playing. You can't do that and expect to win.
Yeah.
But it is interesting though. When everybody looks at this stuff, Texas is back, and I'm not saying they're not. Texas played really well when they beat Alabama. Okay, went to Tuscaloosa, beat them on their home field, all that. Great. Okay, but you have to at least put it in the context of this is not a good Alabama team.
No,
this is not the the gold standard Alabama teams of pre-2020. Like it is not that. And so you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt and put that context on it, because it's just not it's not the same. So what I think going into Oxford, I guess I'm a little bit comforted that LSU got this little brush with death this week, because coming off that blowout win against Mississippi State, I feel like if we had these two games reversed and Alabama was playing Mississippi State or somebody else this past week, and we had Ole Miss in Oxford, that we might have been in trouble because we came out and played the way that we did.
Yeah.
We let Arkansas not just hang around, but like have somewhat control of the game. I never felt like really, really threatened. And then when we pulled away and made it an 8-point game late, I was like, oh yeah, we got this. Okay. And then busted play, tight end gets open, breaks on down the field. Then we get another one, same thing where it's just, there's a little bit of a comedy of errors on defense with letting the play break down and letting KJ Jefferson get loose outside the pocket and throw the ball downfield. But hopefully that little brush with death, it gives them enough stuff. We talk about this all the time. When you can have that little near-death experience and still get the W in the SEC and then survive in advance, and now you have all kinds of motivation that you can tap into, like, hey, you remember how close this came to being the other way around, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that they can tighten things up and they just really go out there and handle their business, because we've got a tough little stretch here. 5 SEC games in a row. So we're two games into it. We have 3 to go, and then we get into the bye week and then Alabama after that. But this is an important one here, because LSU can't afford. They can't do what they did last year. I think so. Here's the other thing. We talk about the SEC being wide open. I actually think this year, the Pac-12 being as like having as many contenders as it does actually bodes well. People think like this means the SEC is going to be in trouble this year, that we might not get a team in the playoff, or that we might only get one or something like that. No, I actually think what the Pac-12 is in danger of, and what maybe even the Big Ten is in danger of, is you could have like this little round robin in the Big Ten of like the 3 top teams all beating each other,
eating itself alive. It's like self-destructing.
They all have one loss,
and
then there's a conference championship game, and maybe one of them, I doubt they'll lose the conference championship game, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's not a guarantee that you're going to have a juggernaut undefeated Big Ten team that's going to make it to where you get 2 in the playoff again, like you did last year. And then in the Pac-12, I mean, hell, you could have multiple 2-loss teams and then a couple of 1-loss teams. And then you're trying to compare that to if LSU runs the table the rest of the way and their only losses to Florida State, and Florida State is undefeated, because I don't know who's going to beat them at this point. They took care of business in that Boston College game. They took care of business in a must-win game for Clemson. And I know they've got North Carolina, and they've got Wake Forest and a few other. You've got NC State. You've got some other schools in the ACC that could give Florida State a run for their money. But if Florida State takes care of business, I see them going undefeated, just like we talked about at the beginning of the season. So you could actually have the whole college football landscape wide open.
Yeah. No.
Outside of like 1 or 2 teams.
No,
those last 2 spots are going to be really, really up for grabs.
I completely agree, because it's like you think like every conference, it's not like one team is above the rest. It's like 3 to 4 that like are trying to like make it out of their side. Like you said, Florida State, and UNC is there in the ACC. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think that like you said, like the Pac-12. I don't think that we're going to have an undefeated team coming out of the Pac-12. Nor do I think that we're going to have like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State are a lot closer to each other than people think. Michigan against Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers covered. Greg Schiano, shout out Greg Schiano.
Yes,
it's like with Harbaugh back at the helm, it's like yeah, Michigan only gave up 7, but I don't know. It's like not here. It's like I don't know if you want to call that a struggle win with against
Mm-hmm.
Rutgers, but Rutgers is honestly not even that bad this year. Um, like you said, like these conferences are gonna like just beat each other up too much to the point where it's like
Mm-hmm.
now you have like a 2-loss team or 1-loss team being your conference champ, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's your best contender for a national title for your conference. Completely agree.
And I think it's a little bit premature, like we've been talking about for the last few weeks. For the SEC had a couple of bad weeks out of the gate, 5-7 out of conference against Power 5, conference teams, and here goes the rest of the world dancing on the graves of the SEC, and it's like, all right,
So
like this is what you're doing is, you ever played Mortal Kombat and like somebody wins round 1 and it's like a flawless round 1 and they're all feeling it ahead of themselves, and sure enough you just come back from behind and just whip their ass in the next 2 rounds, and it's like, all right, now what?
I love
and then
that.
you just give them the fatality just for good measure, like it's be careful because there's a lot of stuff that's kind of getting the kinks worked out right now in the SEC, and be prepared because the SEC is still around, still coming. Those athletes still exist.
October and November are on their way soon enough.
That's right.
That's what I'm talking about.
So we have Ole Miss in Oxford this weekend. Then we have at Missouri next weekend, and then we have Auburn at home on October 14th, and then we get Army, and then a bye, and then Alabama. So
this is going to be the other thing for this weekend too. Is just Carson Beck's first away game as a starter, and in a place like Jordan-Hare that's like can be pretty challenging, especially like you get down against Auburn early, they can feed off that energy. I mean, we go Auburn, then we're back home at Kentucky. I will be at that game.
Okay, good.
And then which is a night game that just got announced.
All right.
So sorry, that's really exciting.
No, that's good. Okay. That's good. Then Vandy at
Vandy, and then we go to Jacksonville.
That's right. You go. It's not the
world's largest outdoor cocktail party, baby. Jack's Beach.
That's right.
And then we play Missouri, which we still don't. Like you said, we both still don't know what they're going to be. And then we get to play at home against Ole Miss, and then we go to, which is this game. As far as like the stock market, right? Like my feelings about going to Tennessee keep going up and down, up and down, up and down.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, especially once again, Carson Beck's junior first year as a starter, going to a place like Neyland Stadium can become very overwhelming very fast.
And depending on how Tennessee's playing going into that game, it could be crazy.
Exactly. It's about who is Tennessee really? Do we know yet? We kind of do. But that's a team with Josh Heupel at coach that can turn around real fast. You know what I mean? It's still early. Like I said, October and November are on their way. And then, of course, we wrap it up with the good old nerds from Georgia Tech. After that.
There you go. I work with a lot of those nerds.
But hey, like I said, that's why I call, they're smart people, and they're going to have great jobs. But we're going to win the football game.
Yeah, right.
Who's really the winner?
Right. No, for sure. I feel you. Well, that's what I was trying to tell them. That they were my one of the guys I work with was talking about how they beat South Carolina. I was like, oh, bro, that was South Carolina State. It doesn't count, man. Oh shoot! It's like, no, it was the Gamecocks. I was like, no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
It's South Carolina State, man. And but anyway, good. I know you pay attention, obviously. But
So you go read a book again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's why you guys suck at sports. You don't even know the difference between South Carolina and South Carolina State. Oh, shoot. I can't really say much because Georgia Tech basketball back in the day, they gave us the business in the Sweet 16. It was a Sweet 16. They had Kenny Anderson, Brian Oliver, and Dennis Scott. That was a tough team. They went to the Final Four that year.
Tech's beaten us in between the hedges before. So we talk all of our shit because we know that they're smarter than us, and that's okay. But it's and they're in the heart of Atlanta, and we will happily come to Bobby Dodd Stadium and make that a home game.
Right.
So
right. There you go. All right. Well, I look forward to getting into it a little bit deeper about different matchups and everything and what we expect to see going into Saturday's games. But for now, that is this episode of the South End Zone. Don't forget to subscribe and to share this episode with your family and friends, and give us a like as well. Don't be afraid to comment either. We got let's get some lively discussions going down in the comments, and we will respond. I still got to go back and respond to the Florida State guy. I was going to wait until they lost to Clemson if they did, and then I was going to talk trash back to him, but they got their win, so now I got to go just be nice and cordial. But no, we appreciate everybody coming through, and with that, we will say goodbye until later on this week. It's the South End Zone. I'm Chad. He's Tyler. Peace, y'all.
Peace.